up guys, welcome to Yai's Garage YouTube channel, back again with another video. And today I'm going to be going over the reliability and maintenance costs of my 2013 G37s. So this is my 2013 Infiniti G37s 6-speed manual. I got this a little over 2.5 years ago. In July 1st of this year, it will mark my 3-year ownership of this car. So I know that's not exactly 3 years yet, but it's close enough. So instead of naming this 2.5 years, I'm going to be making it on 3 years ownership of this car. And in that time, I've learned a lot about this car, and I'm going to go through how much it cost me to maintain this car, what are the common issues that you should look out for before you purchase this car, and any big repair costs that you might encounter if you happen to own this car. Over the past 3 years, this car has treated me really well. Overall, this car is extremely reliable, especially if you compare it to your German counterparts or other vehicles of this caliber. So this is a quote-unquote sports car. They have a Nissan 370Z, which is your strictly 2-seater sports car. This is the luxury version of that car. My particular car is a 2-door coupe. And it's a 6-speed manual. So it is a performance car. I have the big brake kit, Akebono brakes with the sports wheels, sports bumper, and sports rear bumper as well. So just keeping that in mind that this is a sports car, I'm going to go through how much it costs me over the 3 years, how much I spend in maintenance month to month, how much gas costs, and then some of the bigger repairs that I've had to do when I got this car. And how much it costed me, and then just an overall grade of how reliable is this car and is it worth getting. So the very first time I got this car, it was my biggest expense when I got it. The clutch master and the slave cylinder failed as soon as I got the car. So this is a very common issue on these cars, especially if you get the 6-speed manual. This is not an issue in the automatic transmission. It's only specifically to the manual transmission cars. If you guys are interested in 5 common problems of this car, I went into much more detail in one of my other videos, so I'll link that up, so go check that out. But so the story of when I first got this car, it had 75,000 miles, and when I had gotten, I looked at the clutch fluid and it was a bit dark, so that had already given me the sign that the clutch master and the slave cylinder had to be replaced. In these cars, the 370Zs and the G37s, the clutch master and the slave cylinder specifically, it's a very poor design, and the worst part is that the slave cylinder is inside the transmission. So those parts are very likely to go bad, and when they do, you do need to drop the transmission. So it is an expensive replacement and expensive job. When I first got this car and got back home, the very first hard pull I did and shifted hard, my clutch pedal went to the floor and lost all pressure. And when that occurs, that means that your slave cylinder and clutch master had failed. So when that occurred to me, the first thing I did was got that replaced. And since I was dropping the transmission already to fix this, I also did a full clutch and flywheel change. So Z-Speed is a company that makes a kit. It's called the CMC. It's the Clutch Master. It's called the CMAC. I forgot what it stands for, but they built a new design for the Clutch Master where they makes the slave cylinder outside the transmission. So if it does happen to go bad again, it's very easy to replace instead of having to drop the transmission. So all in all, I got the CMAC, which is about $500. Then I went ahead and got their stage 1 clutch kit, which I'll link in the description below. All of that combined costed me about $1,500 in just parts. It was an extra about $600 to $650 with tax of labor to do this. Again, it's not something you can do this at home. I mean, I've seen videos of people doing it at home on YouTube. It is a very difficult job, so it's not something I would recommend. Just take it to a shop and they'll do it for you. So all in all, I had to spend about $2,300 as soon as I got the car. as I mentioned, since then, since the very first time I got the clutch masters, new clutch, slave cylinder, all replaced, since then, this car has given me absolutely no issues whatsoever. These VQ 3.7 liter V6s are very reliable. They do tend to burn a little bit of oil, so you just want to make sure that you're routinely changing your oil. I change my oil every 3,000 miles, which is kind of early, to be honest. Every single time I change the oil is still kind of new, so moving forward I think I'm going to be changing every 5,000 miles. So I use Mobil 1 full synthetic oil. Every time I get an oil change, I just change the oil filter at the same time. It costs about $70 in the oil and the oil filter, and I typically do the oil change myself. If not, I'll take it to my local mechanic and he does it for 20 bucks. So let's say all in all 90 bucks every, depending on how much you drive. For me it's honestly like every 6 months I'll have to do an oil change, so that's, let's say, 200 bucks a year on just oil. Really, aside from that, since I got the car, I haven't done a brake job because my brakes, you know, this is only 88,000 miles on my car. In the over 3 years I've had it, I've only driven it about 15,000 miles. So no brake, never changed them, just maintain the oil. Aside from that, I don't really have a high running costs of maintaining this car. I must say though, the gas mileage on these cars are atrocious. I had made a video of 5 things I hate about this car, and one of the things was the gas mileage. It sucks. I get like 13 to 15 miles per gallon. I do have a heavy foot, but regardless, I know people, some people say on the highway they get 18 to 20, which is good. I'll get that too if I'm driving highway, but since I drive local a lot, I get about 15 miles to a gallon. So I fill up a lot. It costs me $90 to fill up with premium, and I fill up about every 2 weeks, so that's about $180 in gas a month, which is kind of pricey given inflation and how the gas prices fluctuate. You know, at its highest point I was paying almost $100 to fill this car up, which is a lot of money for gas. So when you are looking to get this car, just know that you're going to be spending a lot of money on gas. You know, these are high revving cars, especially if you want, you know, drive your car a little more spirited. You're gonna have to fill up gas way more often. So that's another running cost of mine to maintain this car. So speaking of gas, I want to bring up the fact that the fuel pump on these cars tend to go bad. So I actually made a video about a couple months ago where I was driving this car and the car just shut off while I was driving, and I had thought it was a bunch of random things. You know, it could be my intake, my MAF, you know, a bunch of different things. I was stranded on the road. Go check that video out. I'll link it on top. And the car would not turn on, and I was so confused. I had my cousin come over and check it out, and turns out the car ran out of gas. Now you would think, damn, yeah, are you dumb? How can you run out of gas? I was pretty pissed on myself too. However, the reason why I ran out of gas, that was the first time ever, was because my gas gauge was not reading correctly. And the reason that occurs is there's 2 things. One, I've read online, it's because could be the top hat of your fuel pump goes bad, so that makes your fuel gauge not read properly. So at that time my fuel gauge was reading half tank, but in reality I was completely out of gas. So even now my gas gauge says about a quarter tank, but I've already driven 75 miles, and knowing this car and my car personally, the most I'll get is about 220 to 30 miles to a gallon. So this should be about a little over a half tank left. So now I haven't fixed that issue yet, so I'll get to that soon. I've just been really lazy, but the only way I really know how much gas I have is just make sure when I get gas to reset my trip, and just make sure as soon as I hit 200 miles, just to be safe, I just refill. So that's one additional common issue with these cars, that the fuel pump will go bad. Other than that, there's a couple other common issues that I'm just gonna quickly brush through right now. Again, if you guys are very interested in full details of those 5 problems, go check my video out. of the 5 common problems with G37s and 370Zs, but I'm just gonna quickly burst you some of those common problems in this video, and then we'll wrap it up. As I mentioned earlier in this video about how these 3.7 VQs tend to burn a lot of oil, the older models of the G37, so from about 2008 to 2010, have a galley gasket issue. So those will go bad and it'll make your engine rod knock and explode if you don't get those changed. So if you happen to get a G37 prior to 2011, I would suggest getting that changed, or else you'll be risking your engine to go bad. So Infiniti and Nissan fixed the galley gasket issue after 2011, so you don't need to worry about that in the newer models. But if you do happen to purchase an older one, please get that checked out and fixed ASAP so you don't risk getting rod knock. Another issue I mentioned in my video 5 common problems, it was the differential bushing. So I will just go ahead and show that right there. That circular bushing tend to go bad. So I actually got that changed. As you can tell, that's a polyurethane bushing from Z1 Motorsports. So when this bushing leaks and you try flooring your car in a lower gear, the back of the car will shake and the diff will shake a lot, so the car won't put down any power and you'll get aggressive wheel hop. That had happened to my car before I got that fixed. I would also recommend, while you're doing the differential bushing, you might as well get your transmission bushings changed as well. I did not do that. Just myself being lazy and not wanting to spend the extra money, but it's always worth it. Just get all 3 bushing changed and the car will not only not wheel hop, but it will drive so much better. You'll be able to shift much faster. So that's a common issue on these cars. The bushings tend to leak. So Z1 Motorsports makes some upgraded, sportier ones. They're much harder so they don't leak. So I would just highly recommend you guys get those, and that'll solve that issue. Aside from that, guys, honestly, this car is extremely reliable. When I made that video about 5 common problems of the Infiniti G37 and 370Zs, I did see a bunch of comments that were like, no thanks, car is not reliable, and I completely disagree with them. In the 3 years ownership of this car, I have not had any issues, and I beat the living crap out of this car. I mean, I do respect it, but you know, I do push it. You know, I have fun with it. I do some fun runs in Mexico. You know, I like to enjoy this car, and you really don't need to worry much when you drive this car, unlike other brands that I will not mention, where the second you start having fun with it, they tend to break. So unlike those cars, the G37s, 370Zs are extremely reliable. You can have a lot of fun, and they don't require much maintenance aside from doing some oil changes. I highly recommend anyone who is looking to get a sports car under $15,000 and 330 horsepower range, 350. I've mentioned the unlimited modding potential that this car has, and it being very reliable. I would highly recommend anyone that's looking for sports cars to go with this car as one of their top picks. I've looked at a lot of different cars in the price range, and I think this car is the best bang for the buck. Not only does it look good, sound good, but most importantly, it's extremely reliable. It will not break your bank. As long as you just keep up with your regular maintenance and just get those couple things fixed right in the beginning, like in the manuals, with the biggest expense is the clutch master and slave cylinder, you'll be all set, and you will absolutely love your ownership of this car, just like I have. You know, I'm coming up to 3 years, and at this rate I can probably keep this for another 3 with no major issues. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.